Come out with us and play. Love your London. Have a banana. In today's episode of Love Your London, you are going to discover that Charles Darwin and his good friend William Tegetmeier experimented on bees and pigeons here in Muswell Hill. Plus you will find out why there is an old milk float in the back of a pub. But first of all, we pay a brief revisit to Alexandra Palace, from where this particular journey all started. Hello everyone. Yes, well, regular viewers of the channel will know that one of the ways that we make money, a little bit of something that goes towards our costs, is Sharon does a drawing at every single area of London that we visit. So today it's going to be the tower, the Alexandra Palace Tower, which we've obviously talked about quite a lot in episodes 1 to 4 of this series. There's going to be a link at the bottom so that you can buy this on eBay, and please do. I mean, just put a bid in. It'll probably last about 10 days from the from the day that this episode goes out. Please put a bid in, because it really does help us. Yes.
It's a beautiful day for it.
It is indeed.
I'll just do a little bit of a couple of studies and then I'll do the drawing. What a gorgeous, wonderful morning.
Sharon had to finish the drawing over the next few days, and it is now up on our eBay page. You have 10 days from the day that this episode goes live, and bidding starts at just £15. In our previous episode, we were with our friend, who is a local to Muswell Hill, Kate Carrier, and we were admiring Ben Wilson's chewing gum stuck to the pavement outside the Methodist Church on Pages Lane. Now, let's go back to where we left off.
You know what?
It's time for KateCam! And we're off. Now, unfortunately, the tripod that we'd attached to Kate's chair is very loose, so this keeps happening. But at least you get to see some more blue sky. So every cloud, well, no clouds in this case, but you get our gist, I'm sure. So we're going eastbound on Pages Lane and a quick right turn onto Colney Lane. See, I pronounced it correctly this time. Straighten up the tripod. Gorgeous spring morning, as you can see. Oh, and here's the Catholic church. And we're heading down south onto Muswell Hill Broadway, and nope, she's heading back. It's the Woodbury Foot Health Clinic. Now, there is a reason why Kate thought that this would be of interest to you, and it is for non-podiatric reasons. This old plaque on the wall, which you can see this year, it was actually really hard to see last year because it was dark like the rest of the wall, says Parish Boundary Post number 410, sunk in ground 9 foot 4 inches east-northeast of this plate. So obviously there used to be a post in the middle of what is now the road, Colney Lane, and so this plaque basically says that that's where it was, which is great. Now, south of this plaque, the road becomes Muswell Hill Broadway. It's still the same road, but it changes its name. In this little patch alone, we pass here a Japanese restaurant called Sushi Zento. Over there you can see a Catalan and Spanish cocktail and tapas bar, La Luna. Mediterranean restaurant called Celicia. Over there you can see a French restaurant called Côte Passerie. I mean, there's just so much. There you can see Lardier Kitchen, which specialises in Anatolian food. And a couple of doors down you can see yet another Japanese, Midori. There's La Porchetta, which is of course an Italian chain restaurant. Oh, talking of Italians, there used to be an amazing independent restaurant here called Connubio da Fabio, but unfortunately he's closed down. But there is still a good Italian restaurant around here called La Doc. And if you do go in there, do try out their Caffè Nutella. It's exactly what you think it is. So look at all these restaurants just on the 200-metre section of Muswell Hill Broadway between the parish boundary marker and the roundabout. Muswell Hill foodies really are spoilt for choice. You may remember in our Acton episode we visited the police memorial for the massacre of Baybrook Street, where 3 police officers lost their lives in a shootout. Well, in 1985, PC Keith Blakelock was murdered by a mob during a riot in the Broadwater Farm housing estate. Oh, sorry about all that drilling in the background. I'd better do this as a voiceover. Basically, we're going to be covering Broadwater Farm Estate when we get to Tottenham in about 2031. So I'll explain then what actually caused the riots, the horrendous attack on PC Blakelock, and the subsequent miscarriages of justice where a number of people were falsely accused and imprisoned and subsequently acquitted. To this day, the identity of the murderers still remains unsolved. The reason why there is a memorial here is because Muswell Hill was where PC Blakelock's beat was. Now, I think that over there, that's one of the most charming roundabouts in London. That is actually where the village pond used to be. Obviously, back in the old days, there were horse-drawn trams and stuff, and they used to bring. This was the terminus for the horse-drawn trams because of the horses used to drink in the pond over there. Now, funny enough, it is still a major terminus for the buses. As you can see over there, there's the 144, which is parked. So even though it's no longer a pond, so it's not really needed for the horses, it is still a place where the buses terminate. And funnily enough, in the middle there is an area where bus drivers can get off and have a snack and a rest. So earlier on we showed you the very first Weatherspoons pub, which was now called the Furlong, built from 1979. Here's another Weatherspoons pub, but this is a very interesting one. Now, as you can see, it's called the Mossy Well. That refers, if you remember earlier on in another earlier episode when we were talking about the origins of the name of Muswell Hill, Mossy Well, this is a nice little nod to the original name. Now, the one good thing, apart from the price, which is very good, the one good thing I've got to say about Weatherspoons pubs is that they are very good at not ripping the history out of a place. They do try and keep the original structure. So it's very, very noisy here. We're just by a lot of traffic, but hopefully you'll be able to hear me over the traffic. Nothing I can do about it. This is I can't really stop the traffic, can I? We're not important enough.
You would never know there was a pandemic.
No, that's true. But anyway, the Mossy Well. Now that used to be. Now you may remember also in our Acton episodes where we talked about express dairies, and there was that short little train ride that linked South Acton to Acton town, and that was for the express dairies. Well, actually, this used to be a dairy, and here is a wonderful photo of the original dairy, and as you can see from this old photo, it looks really similar to how it does today as a Weatherspoon. It's actually had quite a lot of different guises over the years. In 1984 it became a pub and a pizzeria, and half of it was called the Swiss Village, the other half was called the Swiss Chalet. Obviously nothing to do with Swiss Cottage, which is in Swiss Cottage, which we'll be visiting when we get to S, or maybe a bit earlier than that. It's had a few different name changes. It's been called the Tap and Barrel, it's been called Ruby in the Dust, but then in 2015 it was taken over, as I said, by Weatherspoons, and it was given the name the Mossy Well. There's lots and lots of really interesting photos inside, but one of the things that you got in the back of the pub, in the beer garden, you've actually got an original milk float, just to sort of like add to the original history of the place.
And really good disabled toilet.
That's
a really good disabled.
That is actually something else that Weatherspoons do quite well. They do look after the disabled facility. They do have good disabled facilities on the whole. Before we get to the final section of our penultimate episode on Alexandra Palace to Muswell Hill, just a quick reminder to look for the eBay link in the description if you want to bid on Sharon's pen and ink drawing. If you're quick, you can snap it up. Other ways you can support us financially is via Patreon. But to help us for free, share this episode, like it, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to our channel and ring that notification bell, because the next and final episode is going to be amazing, and you won't want to miss it. We are currently at number 101 St James's Lane. This lovely little house here also known as Willow Cottage. This house was the home from 1858 to 1868 of William Tegetmeier. Now he was a very good friend of Charles Darwin, and it was here at that time that Darwin and Tegetmeier conducted experiments on bees to work out why their cells were hexagonal. They also performed quite a lot of different experiments on pigeons. He was a real pigeon fancier. Darwin was fascinated also about getting pigeons to breed and stuff like that, and whether they could actually breed a pigeon that would be infertile. So these were the certain experiments that Tegetmeier and Darwin were doing. Tegetmeier was a supporter of Darwin's theories, or his what's the word I'm looking for? At that stage they were just still theories. I can't say that Tegetmeier was a particularly nice person, to be honest. He loved cockfighting. He vehemently opposed women's rights and suffrage. He also believed that house sparrows were a pest that needed to be controlled, but his love for pigeons was renowned. He was actually the very first person in this country to organise pigeon races. He trained pigeons to become homing pigeons, and these were then used in the military. But I suppose the most important thing, and the best thing we can say about him, is that he was an ardent supporter of Charles Darwin at a time when he needed support the most.
And not everything he believed in was absolutely wrong. But in that era, a lot of it was wrong.
Believing
believing in creating or breeding rather animals to do this or that, and how things work. I mean, they were still figuring it out, weren't they?
Yes.
And even early on, Darwin was still working on his theories and tightening them up a bit. So
yeah,
nobody's perfect. But this sure is a lovely little cottage, and as far as I'm concerned, that's pretty perfect.
So next week is our final episode on Alexandra Palace to Muswell Hill, and we're going to be tackling Fortis Green in that episode as well. It's going to be a real journey. Discover where you can buy Sug's favourite coffee, taste some of the best fish and chips, treat yourself to a monthly subscription of cheese, hang out with Oscar nominees, blend your own perfume, and, most importantly of all, discover why this area is so important for fans of two famous bands, the Kinks and Fairport Convention. Oh, and there's Rod as well. See you in our final episode. Subscribe and like.
Don't forget to bid.
From Acton Town to Wimbledon, from Brixton to beyond. Love your London. Have a banana.